I'm a student. My parents set aside some money yonks ago, so when I went off to university, I could afford to go just about anywhere. This wasn't a tuition thing as we're in the UK, so I was always going through Student Finance England, SFE for that. But some areas of the country are way more expensive than others due to the cost of living, as it gets higher around the best unis. I got into a uni with a very high cost of living. My parents were giving me the money meant for me in installments, just like SFE does. I got a part-time job to top it up. Then, I got pregnant. I figured I could keep the baby, provided I didn't suddenly lose any income. My parents then decided to stop giving me the money they set aside for me, saying it was for my education only. I then went over my options again and realised I would have to go full-time to just make ends meet, which I did, but I had to make a lot of compromises to make it work. It's been like this for about a year. I gave birth late last August, making my daughter just over 7 months old. Myself, my parents, and my sister have all had our first jabs, and our nan is fully vaxxed. Dad's birthday is this Friday and Nan's is on Tuesday, so my parents want me and my sister to drive to Nan's house this weekend to celebrate both events. I've said I can't afford it. It's a 6-hour drive each way, so I'll miss at least 1, most likely 2 days of work. My parents asked me to rearrange what I could, pointing out that I should get money from SFE next month. It actually came a week ago, so I can afford to miss work for a couple of days. They said that as they haven't met the baby yet, and we've not seen each other in a year, they want to see us now. I said if they want to see us, then they can pay me, as I can't afford to lose any wages now they've cut me off. They said that's incredibly unfair of me, and they can't believe I'd try and guilt-trip them over what they did with their money. I offered to FaceTime my sister, who could put me on with Mum, Dad and Nan if I had time, but they said me mentioning time constraints was further guilt-tripping and I shouldn't expect them to pay for my presence, that I was being tactless and selfish and that if I attend, they don't want to hear about money. I told them that they created this situation, and if they're seriously shocked that I can't afford to take a cross-country trip with 2 days' notice, then they have no clue what the real world is like for someone who is a full-time student, a full-time worker, and a single mother, so I now have an appearance fee. My sister's boyfriend also got his SFE loan early like I did, so she said that I already have the money from SFE and that me wanting an appearance fee is greedy and entitled, bordering extortion, and that I'm trying to make our parents feel guilty about money I have no right to. Am I the idiot? Edit. I have a 1-bedroom in a not super touristy town. Nan's house is a 5-bed, 2.5 bath, less than 2 minutes walking from the beach. Not the idiot. If they want to see you without paying for your travel time, they can travel to you. What they're asking of you is not financially neutral. Making this trip would cause you to lose money you can't afford to lose. So you aren't lying by saying you literally can't afford to go unless they help you out. Not the idiot. I realize it's your parents' money to use at their own discretion, but they had to realize cutting you off at your most vulnerable, and at a time of life when you'd need support most, was going to drive a wedge between you. They don't now get to demand your presence on little notice. I do think it was a little tactless to call it an appearance fee, but whatever you're feeling, if it's bitterness or anger, you came by it honestly. They also don't get to play the "we've never met the baby" card when their actions contributed to your inability to come home as you now work full-time. And frankly, if they really want to foster a relationship with you and your child, they're going to have to understand that you're under a lot of financial constraints. Especially since the money was set aside for education and OP is still a student, full-time I think. It seems to me the condition of getting the money from parents was to pay for cost of living while getting an education, and OP is still fulfilling that despite also having a baby. Now the parents aren't holding up their end of the deal, or they changed their terms to "and you can't have a kid." If their goal was to punish OP for being irresponsible and getting pregnant, congratulations. You now have a responsible child that recognizes that they can't drop work on a whim because they need to provide for their own baby. I recently bought a house and moved in. The previous owner rented the house out to students and transformed a big part of the front yard into a parking place. My front yard is basically just 4 parking spaces. I live alone and basically only use one of the parking spaces. But while the painters, handymen and gardeners for the backyard were there, they used the other parking spaces during the day because the nearest community parking spaces are half a kilometre from my house, so about a 5-minute walk. When they were done and I moved in, my elderly neighbour, who cannot walk without a cane, asked if she could continue the deal she made with the previous owner. She showed me the contract she made with the previous owner that states that she can use it in exchange for a home-cooked meal once a month. I told her she didn't have to give me anything as I understood her situation, but she insisted. So I signed the contract to let her use the space closest to her house. This went well for a couple of months before another house in the street was sold and the new neighbours asked if their handymen and painters could use the parking places until they were done, as it was not handy to make them walk all the way to and from their truck. It's not allowed to park on the street in my street. I told them it was fine, but only the handymen and painters can use the spaces. When they are done, I don't want others I did not make a deal with using my parking spaces, as I like to keep the spaces clear for my girlfriend, friends and family when they are allowed to visit again. Fast forward a month and the handymen and painters have finished with the house and the new neighbours started using the spaces. I told them this wasn't what we discussed and that they had to leave. They told me that the spaces are community spaces and she and her husband could use them as I didn't need 4 spaces for myself. I told her to move the cars or I have them towed. They moved the cars and didn't use the spaces anymore for a week. As soon as she parked her car there again, I immediately called a tow company and half an hour later her car got towed. The next day she came up to me asking why her car went. I told her that I had it towed because she parked in my front yard. My friends tell me I'm being a petty idiot for having her car towed and should apologise. My girlfriend tells me that I did the right thing as they would have probably claimed my entire front yard as their personal parking places if I didn't make a point out of it. So, am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. It's absurd of her to claim that your private property is community space. She's acting very entitled and you did the right thing by having her towed. God, if anything happened to her car and it got scratched, she could sue you. You should probably put up a sign though, parking only with explicit permission from the owner. All others will be towed. Maybe a camera too, just to make sure they don't try anything. Not the idiot. You warned them what would happen and they did it anyway. I don't understand why they would need to park there, and I don't think you have any moral obligation to let them slide. Plus them trying to claim it is community parking, despite said parking being in your yard, is just ridiculous. They probably need to park there because a 5-minute walk would be the end of the world. I just want to add on that the elderly neighbour is adorable, wanting to pay for her parking with a meal. So sweet OP lets them continue parking there. OP is not the idiot. Update. I have received a letter about taking me to Small Claims Court. I think it's called, I'm not English. It's a court for small private matters. If it wasn't made clear, the towing happened about a week ago. For those who asked, the old lady is really grateful to use the parking space and gives me a meal every first day of the month. I'm looking into getting a sign made. I've also bought flower pots to put in the unused parking spaces. My fiancé and I have lived together for 6 years with my daughter and our little son. He works full-time as a teacher. I work full-time from home and put in just as much time and effort as I did when I was in the office, before Global Issue. I'm also finishing up my last semester in college. I do all of the cooking and most of the cleaning, which I don't mind. We recently developed a rotation system with the dishes. I would do them one day, my daughter the next day, and my fiancé the following day. My daughter and I would always do the dishes on our designated dish day. When it would get to my fiancé, it would pile up for days and he would ask my daughter for help. Eventually, he proposed another system. He and my daughter would help each other for 2 days in a row, then I would do them on my own one day. The work, in theory, would still be split equally, and so on. They both agreed. It sounded great. Except that doesn't happen. I still continued to do the dishes on my dish day, but they did not. I used to get frustrated with the mess and would break down and do them myself, but then I realized that they aren't learning to be accountable by me just doing them for them. So I let them pile up and up until we have no more dishes and they are forced to clean the mountain of dishes they allowed accumulating. I still cook, clean the house, mop the floors, wipe off the counters, but I leave the dishes for them to do per our agreement. The other day we had a relative stop by to drop something off, and I asked them to please excuse the kitchen and explain the situation. They were appalled that I didn't do them myself and said that I have more time to do them since I'm at home all day and that I should take on more of the chores. They also said I'm being passive-aggressive by not doing them and allowing them to build up so much. My fiancé also shares the ideology that I should be doing more than I do because I'm working from home and have more time. Except I don't, not really. I make a lot of money doing what I do, and part of the reasoning for that is high performance. My bonuses and raises are merit-based, so I can't just bebop around the house while I'm on the clock. I get two 15-minute breaks and a 45-minute lunch. My company can also monitor how much time you are active at your desk since it's a company computer on their VPN. There have been occasions where I've spent my entire lunch break doing dishes, but I prefer to spend that time actually eating lunch. I originally didn't think that I was the idiot here, but my fiancé and our family think that I am. I started thinking that maybe it's passive-aggressive or mean or lazy for me to just ignore a chore that needs to be done, and now I'm on the fence about it. What do you think? Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Too many people equate working from home as, I have all the time in the world because I'm home and within walking distance of my bed. You're completely in the right for leaving the dishes dirty. You pull your weight, so why can't they? If they live by themselves, they'd have to do it all alone, right? Also, the nerve of some people to walk into someone else's home and give their 2 cents worth on a situation they have no idea about. Terrible. It's the same game as, you're a stay-at-home parent, you have plenty of time to do all the errands, all the cleaning, and make sure there's a martini and dinner waiting when I get home. Work from home people have gained back the commute time, but that is it. OP is still fully employed and doing all of the household work and is asking for help with one simple chore. The fiancé is incredibly selfish to refuse to help out. You are the idiot. Your relatives were right. You're at home. Take on a little extra responsibility because you have the benefit of being there. You want to sit with dirty dishes piling up to teach them accountability? You're teaching your fiancé accountability? Not everything in life has to be perfectly fair and even. I'm sure that there are other areas in your life where your fiancé takes on extra responsibility, and I'm sure you don't bat an eyelash about that. I, 30 female, have a daughter with my husband, 30. Our daughter was diagnosed with anxiety when she was little and has struggled with going to school, both because of the number of kids in her classes and because she struggles a lot socially and doesn't like to be out of the house very often. She has a couple of friends, but I know she would happily stay at home if given the choice. Global health crisis was very rough. She never got used to leaving the house or going to school. The school didn't handle classes the best from the time they closed to the time the school year ended in June. No Zoom, worksheets sent by different teachers, no deadlines. It was parents basically talking to multiple teachers and trying to keep track. My daughter really struggled when Zoom classes started in August. She struggled so much with having everyone online and invading her space, but I had hoped it would help her adjust better to going back to physical school. Her school opened back up in January and it's not been easy. She cries, throws up, doesn't want to go, is very withdrawn and doesn't engage with her teachers. She's talked about leaving school forever. Her school counsellor and therapist suggested getting a babysitter to drop her off, that maybe it would be easier. So we did that, and she had a panic attack on the way to school that first day of trying. This was followed by a solid 3 weeks of panic attacks, and the therapist advised we stop because it was harming her more. It's still rough, and spring break didn't really help all that much either. My in-laws have been very tough on us. They have said we cater to her too much, that we're too soft and understanding, that back in their day she would have been told to toughen up. My mother-in-law came hard for me after hearing our daughter had expressed dark thoughts to us. She's getting help right now for those and we're being referred to psych again. Mother-in-law said if she was her daughter or was in her care, she would be dropped off at school being told nobody cares if she's sad or doesn't want to and she needs to grow up. She said there would definitely be no therapy because it's only encouraging her. I told her I was glad she wasn't her mother or guardian with that attitude because I wouldn't have a daughter anymore and it would be all her fault. She was furious, and the rest of my husband's family, husband not included, think I was very out of line and very hurtful saying that to her. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mother-in-law is all tough love and just grow up. Until she gets her feelings hurt, then she's all, I'm going to run to the family and cry about it. Yeah, it's hilarious how so many of these people who go on about how society is so soft these days, people are so whiny, prove to have skin as thick as a mushy grape when they get the slightest bit of pushback. Not the idiot. Do not ever let that woman be alone with your daughter. I can only imagine the vile things she would say and potentially drive your poor kid to do. You and your husband sound like wonderfully loving parents. Not the idiot. Your in-laws' solutions are exactly why so many people in their generation are so emotionally stunted and mentally unhealthy. You told her the truth. Sure, it was harsh, but but it was warranted in my opinion. I'm not saying your husband has to cut contact with his family if he doesn't want to, but you definitely should, and limit all contact they have with your daughter. Psychological illnesses are just as valid as physical ones, and they're only going to damage her mental health further. So I just found myself in a very weird situation in just 2 days. I felt nauseous and kind of tired for 2 weeks, and my friend was really worried about me, even called the GP for me. They asked me if there's any chance I'm pregnant, and I would say no, because me and my boyfriend always use protection. I still did a test, and 2 dark lines came back. My friend was with me when we did the test. She shrieked and hugged me, and I had the feeling she was super happy for me, while I didn't know how to react. Me and my boyfriend just wanted to start our master's degree in September, and although we both have side jobs, I have no idea if that will make enough income for a baby. My friend asked me if it was my boyfriend's, which I found a weird question, and I said of course. Before I could even tell him, he called me and he was in tears. He said my friend had told me I'm pregnant and the baby isn't his. I told him no, that isn't true, tried to reassure him. Either way, he came to me yesterday and said whoever's the baby is, that he still wants to be the baby's dad figure, and we could figure it out together if I want to keep it, which was sweet of him, but it's just that I didn't have intimacy with anyone else in the past 2 years after we started dating, and that baby is his. I messaged my friend what's this all about and she blocked me. I'm so confused. Why is she acting this way? Why did she lie to him and make this up? Should I try to reach her? What should I do? And how can I let my boyfriend be convinced I didn't cheat? I'm really desperate right now. Your friend is trying to poach your man. Sit him down, explain what happened, and say you 100% understand if he wants to DNA the baby once it's born, but you have nothing to hide. Then block that sneaky witch off all your social media. This exactly. She was hoping he would dump OP right away and then she could swoop in and comfort him. She's been hating on you this whole time and jealous of you, and now that your life with him is more real, she wants to destroy that. Sometimes it's the ones closest to you gotta look out for. If you know you haven't cheated, you have nothing to prove, and you don't need a DNA test. Grab your man, drive to your friend and confront her on the spot. Let her have it right in front of him. He will figure out that she was just talking nonsense for whatever reason. The fact that she blocked you means she knew she was guilty of her wrongdoing and didn't want to face the consequences. What a total witch. In my opinion, I'd move on from that friend who doesn't seem to have good intentions. Prioritize the baby and your relationship with your partner.